So, good morning. Hare Krishna. It is Sunday, January 17th. I am in Pismo Beach, California. That's up on the central coast of California, right on the ocean. So, today, I'm going to begin with, let's see. It's funny, where'd it go? I had the verse right here, and now it's, oh, there it is. Sorry. We're going to begin with Srimad-Bhagavatam 1:9-29. First canto, chapter 9, text 29. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, the first verse, 1:9-29, is Dharmang pravadatas tasya sakala pratyupastitaha yoginas chandamrityor vanchitas tutarayanaha. So the first line is Dharmang pravadatas tasya. So as Bhishma, or as he was speaking on Dharma, Vad in Sanskrit means to speak, and pravad means like to teach or declare, or what would the word be in English? To affirm something, or to, in other words, you're not simply saying something, but you're really asserting it. So dharmang pravadatas tasya. So as Bhishma was thus speaking on Dharma, sakala pratyupastita, that time, sakalaha pratyupastita, literally kind of came upon him. Won't go into all the technical Sanskrit here. Pratyupastita. It sort of came upon him. That time came upon him. Which time? That time. So which time? That time which yoginas chandramityor vanchitas. That time which is desired. Vanchita means desired, like vancha kalpa, desire tree. So that time which is vanchitas, which is desired by yogis, or a yogi in this case, a yogi who is a spiritual practitioner. In other words, desired by a spiritual practitioner who is Chandamrityor, who is literally desired death. Chanda means desire, and Mrityu, of course, means death. As we know, when Bhishma renounced the kingdom, renounced marriage, children, and declared that he would be a brahmachari for the rest of his life, in order to secure Satyavati for his father, as a wife for his father, Shantanu. His father granted him a boon, which was Chandamrityu, desire death, literally, which means that one can choose the moment of one's leaving. You can't choose not to die. That's the point. Because Shantanu did not grant his son eternal life. He didn't say that you can die if you want to die. That's not possible in this world. So Chandamrityu means that because there are auspicious and inauspicious times to leave this world, and it's very important for the yogis, as Krishna describes in chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita, there are auspicious times to leave. So Bhishma could choose the time to leave. Death wouldn't just suddenly surprise him. So that time came upon him, that time which is vanchita, wished for by a yogi who can choose the moment of his death. And that time is to indeed Uttarayana, which is the word that Krishna also uses. Uttara means north, and Dakshina means south. It's interesting how these words come to mean this, because in Sanskrit, directions are calculated in a sense from often, not for every word, but in this case, the directions are calculated for one who is facing east, because that's where the sun rises. And when the sun rises, or even at dawn, when the sun hasn't even come above the horizon yet, but the sun is rising, that's how you know where you are. That's how you know what direction you're facing. Let's say you're just out in a forest, or you're out anywhere, and you don't know, let's say at night, you don't really know necessarily what the directions are. But as soon as the dawn comes and the sun starts to rise, then you know what the directions are. And we have this even in English, by the way, because we use the word to orient. Like one has to be oriented, or orientation means to figure out the east, to be easterned, isn't it? Like if you're going to orient something, the orient means you're going to eastern them. So you have this also in Sanskrit. And so if you're facing east, uttara means above, or superior, or above, up, so above. And so if you're facing east, then to I forgot, how does this work again? Anyway, the north. So the north is uttara, it's above. Anyway, I won't go into all this stuff here. Sorry, it gets a little technical. But uttarayana means the northern direction. It simply means like the northern direction. And because from the point of view of the east, the north is above the east. So anyway, so Uttarayana means when the sun is traveling in the north. And that the sun, in fact, we just passed it about a few weeks ago, would have been the time when Bhishma left this world. That's why the birth date of Jesus, which no one really ever knew, because just no one had ever written it down, but they chose to make Christmas on the Uttarayana, because the pagans pagan culture was closely connected to Indian culture in many ways. And so they have the same idea that it's auspicious because the sun is getting lower and lower and lower in the sky. And, theoretically it could just keep going, and then all life as we know it ends. But at a certain point, the sun starts to go up again. And so that Uttarayana, that's when Bhishma chose to leave, when the Uttarayana came, and that's when the pagans chose to celebrate the birth of Jesus and Christmas, although they didn't actually know when he was born. So anyway, so as Bhishma was speaking on Dharma, that time came upon him, that time approached, that time which is wished for by a yogi who can choose the moment of his death, and that time is the Uttarayana. So that's what's going on here in this verse. So tada, then, upasangritya, withdrawing gidaha, his speech. Prabhupada translates this, withdrawing. Then, withdrawing Gita, his speech, Sahasranir. That's interesting. Prabhupada translates this as Bhishma Dev, who is expert in thousands of sciences and arts. But in the translation, that's in the word for word of the translation, he says, thereupon that man who spoke on different subjects with thousands of meanings, and who fought on thousands of battlefields and protected thousands of men. So the word is Sahasra Nir. Ni comes from the well, it is the Sanskrit, ni is the Sanskrit verb to lead, and therefore naya, from that same word, means, what you could say means the leader, actually means the eye. It's used to mean the eye because the eye kind of leads you around. And so anyway, so Sahasra Ni, the most literal sense would be Bhishma who led thousands. And of course, Prabhupada's translation, which is undoubtedly also influenced by the traditional commentaries by great acharyas, it's taken to mean various things, all connected with the word thousand. So vimukta sangam, mana adi purusha. So he withdrew his mind, his speech, and also okay. So the next vimukta sangam mana, it goes with the last word of this verse, the verb vyadharayat. He fixed, he specifically placed mana, his mind, which was vimukta sangam, free of attachment. He placed his mind adi purushe, in the original person, in Krishna, who is lasat pita pate, who wears cloth of shining yellow, or shining yellow cloth. Doesn't say exactly, what style it was, but simply means cloth. So in Krishna, who wears shining yellow cloth, chatur bhuje, four-armed, because that was the form that Bhishma wanted to meditate on. Purak stita, pura means in front, stita, situated in front of him. Purak stita, amilita drik, and Bhishma did this amilita drik, with unblinking eyes. With unblinking, so he was just really fixed, as Prabhupada says, wide open eyes. Vyadaraya. So Bhishma, understanding, it's interesting, he actually understood that the time had come, the Uttarayana had come, that the sun had shifted direction, was now going higher in the sky. He actually had the power to understand that. And so he withdrew, withdrew his speech. He fixed his mind, which was free of all attachment, in the original person, Krishna, dressed in shining yellow cloth with four arms, was standing in front of him, and he fixed his mind, and his eyes were unblinking. He was just so captivated by Krishna. He's not even, Prabhupada translates that as wide open eyes. So then, describing Bhishma, Vishuddhaya Dharaniya. Dharana, of course, is the sixth stage of Ashtanga Yoga. And Prabhupada said the word dharma comes from a verbal root, which means to hold or sustain, of course, which is accurate. And so this is from the same root as the word dharma, dharana, the sixth stage of Ashtanga Yoga, which means that you, pratyahara, you take the mind within in the fifth stage, and then dharana, you hold the mind in that state, focused on the Lord within, and then dhyana and samadhi. So Vishuddhaya, with purified concentration, or Prabhupada says meditation, with purified meditation, Hatha Shubhas, Bhishma, who all of his ashubha, everything inauspicious, in other words, everything which was not Krishna conscious or conducive to Krishna consciousness, Hatha, had been destroyed, had been removed. Hatha also means killed. And so Tadikshaya Eva, and focused on him alone, focused on Krishna alone, Ashu, quickly, or Prabhupada says immediately, Gatayudhashrama, all of the shrama, all of the exhaustion, all of the fatigue of the yudha, of the fighting of the battle was gone. So, of course, he's on a bed of arrows, but all of his fatigue, all of the exhaustion, pain, everything from the battle is now gone. Nibritta sarvendriya vritti vibhramas. And the vibhrama, the confusion, or Prabhupada translates it being widely engaged. Vibhrama in Sanskrit, I'll read you what the dictionary says about vibhrama. It means Brahm, the word Brahm. This is not the word for like Brahman. This is B-H-R-A-M, not B-R-A-H. So Brahm means to wander or to move about. So vibram means moving to and fro, rolling or whirling about, restlessness, unsteadiness. So obviously something the mind has a problem with. It can mean violence or intensity. Anyway, it mean disturbance, because like when you're disturbed, so it can mean disturbance, perturbation, confusion, or mistake. It's a word, it can mean because you're moving about, you're disturbed. So you're getting, so all of that. But the basic thing is the mind moving about, restless, unsteady, agitated. So all of that was now gone. Nivritta means it withdrawn, it stopped. So sarvendriya vritti. So it's a poetic compound, which literally means that Bhishma had stopped vibhrama, the agitation or the disturbance or the wandering of the functions of all the senses. That's literally what it means. Nivritta sarvendriya vritti vibhramas tushtava janyang visarjan janardhanam. Visarjan, as he was releasing, as he was letting go, janyam, which Prabhupada poetically translates the material tabernacle. And in the translation, it just means the material body. Jan means to generate. We have an English word from the Sanskrit. Jan, done, generate. And it comes from the root jan, which means to take birth, hence janma, birth, janmashtami. So jan means to take birth or to cause something, in this case to take birth, in other words, to generate it. And janyam means that which is generated or that which is produced, which is the body, because the soul is not produced. The soul is eternal. And so if we talk about janyam, something which is produced or made, that's the body. So that's the word used here, janyam. So while he was visarjan, janyam visarjan, while he was letting go of this production, the material body, this which didn't exist before and would not exist in the future and just existed for a short time now, while he was letting go of that body, tushtava, where it says he prayed, yes, in the sense also he praised, it also means he praised, tushtava janardhanam, from the Sanskrit root stu, which means to praise, to laud, to eulogize, to extol, celebrate in hymns, to praise or celebrate. So that's what it says, tushtava. He prayed to or praised, glorified Janardana, Krishna. Now it's interesting because we had in the previous verse that he was withdrawing his speech. So what does it mean? Because he's withdrawing his speech, but now he's praising. He praised Janardana while he was letting go of his body. So it's interesting here. If you look at this literally, in the Prabhupada's translation, he prayed transcendentally to the Lord while quitting his material body. Tushtava janyam visarjan janardanam. So he's actually leaving his body. In other words, it's not that Bhishma is lying there and just in 1 second he's gone, but he's actually begun the process of letting go of everything. It's actually a process where he's letting go of the body. And as he does this, he glorified Krishna. Now, previously it said he sort of stopped his speech, but in that context, it said he was speaking on Dharma. So what Bhishma is stopping is he's not going to speak on any mundane thing, even if that mundane thing is, let's say, Vedic sociology or political science, because Yudhisthira had asked Bhishma, how do I govern? Please, basically he wanted a crash course. He wanted a very quick summary of Vedic social science and political science and ethics, which Bhishma gave him. But now, as Bhishma was talking and explaining all these things to Yudhisthira, he noticed the sun is now going north. It's Uttarayana. It's time to leave. And so therefore he stopped talking about anything, let's say, which was just about the material world. And now he fixes his mind on Krishna, and he's only going to glorify Krishna, because that's what he wants to be talking about as he leaves this world. He's fixing his mind directly in Krishna, the person Krishna. So that's what's happening here. And maybe I'll do one more verse. So if you have any questions, please send those in. I'm going to do one more verse here. Sri Bhishma Uvacha. So now Bhishma is speaking. Iti mati rupa kalpita vitrishna bhagavati satvata pungave vibhumni swasukham upagate kvachit bihartum prakriting upeyushi jad bhava pravaha. Okay, so Bhishma said, first, iti matir, thus mati, thinking, feeling, willing, the mind or consciousness, iti matir upakalpita vitrishna bhagavati. Thus, in the sense of now, the mind is upakalpita, Prabhupada translates invested, focused on, we might say nowadays. Prabhupada I'll read Prabhupada's translation. Bhishma Deva said, let me now invest my thinking, feeling, and willing, which were so long engaged in different subjects and occupational duties, in the all-powerful Lord Sri Krishna. He is always self-satisfied, but sometimes being the leader of the devotees, he enjoys transcendental pleasure by descending to the material world, although from him only the material world is created. So Bhishma Dev says that now the mind or consciousness is upakalpita, focused on or invested in Bhagavati, in the Lord. And Trishna. Trishna in Sanskrit means thirst. And just like in English, you could say he was thirsting after something or hungering after something, which in the sense that wanted it very intensely. So in Sanskrit also, Trishna literally means thirst, thirsty, like when you need to drink something. But it also means strong desire, like hankering for something. And V means without that, Vitrishna, without that thirst. And so Prabhupada translates it, Vitrishna, as freed from all sense desires. So iti matir upakalpita vitrishna. So thus the consciousness, my mind, my consciousness, vitrishna, free of hankering, upakalpita, is focused on Bhagavati, the Lord, who is satvata pungave, who is the leader of the devotees. It's very interesting because in this culture, of course, cows were important and bulls because that was the life they led. They were always, practically on a daily basis. They were seen, cows and bulls. That was the source of their livelihood in many ways. The ox were plowing the fields, and the cow was giving milk. And so, of course, it's symbolic because the bull, the male of the species, is going out and providing income. And of course, the woman, the female gives milk to the child, and the cow gives milk. So it's like a mother. So the symbolism of bull and cow is important. You see, also later in the first canto, Parikshit will come upon, and this is of course an allegory, but he comes upon a cow who has been attacked by Kali, he comes upon the bull. The bull has actually been attacked, and three of the legs have been injured. And so this bull turns out to be Dharma. So the bull stands for Dharma. And of course, the cow is the mother, and the cow is also the earth. And so within this culture of all this bull and cow symbolism, we don't, you have this thing here, Pungava. Krishna is called Satvata Pungava. So Pung in Sanskrit basically means male. It's like there's the word Puman, which means a male person, or you have the word Purusha. So Pung means male, and Gava is a form of cow. And so so go, I mean, we translate go as cow, but it really means can mean the species. And we don't have a word for that in English. I mean, we can say cattle, but it's not the best word. So Pungava literally means the male of the cow species, or the male of that species. In other words, the bull, Pungava, the bull. And so to say that he's the bull of the Sattvatas, and it's used in Bhagavad Gita also. I'm trying to remember Pungava. It's also found in Bhagavad Gita, I think, to glorify Arjuna. But so to say he's the bull of the devotees means, Prabhupada translates it, the leader of the devotees. The leader of the devotees. So I thought I'd just give you a little insight into how the Sanskrit is working there. So iti matir upakalpita vitrishna bhagavati satvata pungave vibhumni, and vibhuma or vibhuman unto the great, because as I explained in my guide to the Gita, bhu is originally the word existence. And so because we all exist on earth, bhu can also mean the earth, or bhumi is the earth, from the Sanskrit verb bhu, to be, to exist. And so V can mean apart, in that sense not, like it's apart from something, like V-karma, which is separate from real karma, V-karma, or V-yoga means to separate, like Sang Yoga means to link together, Sang Yoga, and V-yoga means to de-link or to separate. So, but it can mean separate also in the sense of expand. It can also mean to expand. And so vibhu means existence, which is expanding. And expanding means moving apart from the original point. And so in that sense, great existence or great power, great might, something which is an existence which is expanding. And so that's the word used here for Krishna, vibhuman, vibhumni in the locative anyway. So he says now, consciousness is focused without material hankering on the Lord, who is the bull of the devotees, the leader of the devotees, as Prabhupada translates it, and Vibhumni, the Almighty. Prabhupada says, unto the great. And this Lord who swasukam, his own pleasure, his own happiness, swasukam upagate kochit bihartum, prakriting upeyushi, that sometimes Prabhupada translates upagate, who has attained, or who takes on, or for his own happiness, basically means kvachit, sometimes, vihartum, to enjoy, to play. This is the word vihara, like Krishna is called rasa bihari, the one who enjoys rasa, or also, what's that word, that braja bihari, the one who takes pleasure in braja. So the verb vihara means to, among other things, to take pleasure, enjoy, recreation. So swasukam upagate kvachit bihartum prakritim upeyushi. So he has approached Prakriti for his own happiness, he has come to perform pastimes, in a sense, to enjoy pastimes by approaching the material world, jad bhava pravaha. But it's said here, Krishna, Prabhupada translates it yad, as from whom. Bhava, the material world, is made and annihilated. Literally, vaha. Vaha means sort of like to carry, like a wave, to carry. And so pravaha means something like, well, I'll tell you exactly what the dictionary says, because I think it's interesting. Pravaha means a stream, a river, a current running. So it's the current of bhava. It's the current of the material world. Another similar word is vana. So like nirvana. So vana and vaha are synonyms. Nirvana means without vana, without this stream, this current of birth and death. So bhava means the material world. So the material which comes into being, which is going along. So in other words, all the functioning of the material world, the whole current of material life, things are moving through time, just like right now. Everything in the universe at this very second, every physical thing in the universe, including your body, is changing, is moving. So the current is not simply the current of birth and death, but if you think about it, don't think about it too much because you may get dizzy, but it's just like, for example, I'm sitting right now, I'm looking out at the ocean. Sorry, you can't see it. And it just never stops. If you look at the ocean, at every moment, it's moving. And your body, presumably you've eaten something within the last 24 hours or 48 hours. And so your body, all the different parts of our bodies are moving. The blood is flowing, oxygen is coming in, and we're breathing out. And there's all kinds of just millions and millions of microbiological stuff going on. There are atomic functions going on, subatomic functions. So even though you may be just sitting there apparently at rest, there are like billions of things going on in your body. Your body is just going nuts right now. There's just, and so it's true not only for the body, the air is moving, the water is moving, time. And time is driving, time is changing. So therefore the whole material world is called pravaha and bhava. So it comes into being, it's constantly moving, and that's all happening because of Krishna. So one last point I wanted to make, don't confuse this with the crazy idea some people preach that that everything that goes on in this world is just Krishna's pastime, everything that goes on. Because that would mean that when people are suffering terribly, terrible pain, emotional pain, physical pain, that's just Krishna's pastime. He enjoys it. So to say that, because there are some people who claim to be teaching some kind of Indian yoga philosophy, who say that everything that goes on is just Leela. No, there's real suffering going on here, and only the most demonic person would enjoy the suffering of other people. So Krishna's not enjoying just all the suffering in this world. He comes to enjoy, when it says vihartum, to enjoy, he comes to enjoy, so what is that enjoyment? That he's coming to save the fallen souls. He's not enjoying their suffering. What he's enjoying is coming to help them. So we should, I always thought that was like just horrible. I heard that, some so-called yogis or New Age people talking about, everything that happens in this world, it's really just Krishna. It's really just, Krishna enjoying. No, he's enjoying stopping the suffering. He's enjoying saving the souls. He's not enjoying their suffering. So anyway, that is verse 32. Maybe we'll stop here. I will now look on my computer screen, see if there are any questions. Oh my God, there are questions. because I had to hit another button. It looked blank, and then when I hit one button, suddenly, all the question. Okay, here we go. Well, Krishna says in this world, you have to work. You can't even feed yourself without working in this world. So, thank you all for your comments. See if there are any questions. Still haven't found any questions. I appreciate all the comments. I just haven't found any questions yet. Maybe, oh, here's a question. April, sorry. Good old April. How is it recommended that a devotee in this current age prepare for their own inevitable death? That's a good question. Getting down to practical matters here. The glory of devotional service is that if you are fully engaged in Krishna consciousness, at every moment you're preparing. At every moment you're preparing. For example, if we're always glorifying Krishna, if we're always preaching, then at every moment we're doing what Bhishma is doing. He's giving up all his discussion of social science and political science and ethics and all that, and he's just going to glorify Krishna. So the best preparation is to always be talking about Krishna, to always be glorifying Krishna. And then you're already in the spiritual world. Or always serving Krishna, even if always, so whatever we do, that's what Krishna said, Jet Karoshi, whatever you do, Tat Kurusha, make that Madarpanam, an offering to me. So and Prabhupada constantly taught this, that keep yourself in Krishna consciousness, keep yourself engaged. So if at every moment we're talking about Krishna, we're preaching to others about Krishna, we're reading books, or we're serving. Because if whatever you're doing, raising children, cooking, swimming, because your body needs a little exercise. Prabhupada was happy when the devotees were swimming in the beach. Well, actually swimming in the water, not actually in the sand. That would be a little crazy, even for devotees, swimming on the beach. But he was at the beach, at Stimson Beach, north of San Francisco, and Prabhupada sat on the shore, and he was enjoying, because the devotees were faithfully engaged, and even in their recreation. I know in Mayapur, devotees always take pleasure swimming in the Jamuna, and in the old days in Vrindavan, we used to swim in the Jamuna when it was, anyway. So, because why are we doing that? If we're doing it in Krishna consciousness, first of all, to get the mercy of the great goddess Ganga or Jamuna. And if we're doing it just to relax and get exercise so that we can fix our mind in Krishna, or we're fixing our mind in Krishna while we're bathing. So yes, keep yourself in Krishna consciousness, and then whenever Krishna takes you, you will be ready. So, Bhishma had unmoving faith in Krishna in the process. How can sincere devotees deal with temporary moments of lack of faith? Many go through it in silence, afraid to be judged or labeled as not being a, quote, good devotee, unquote. Oh, come on, the Hare Krishna movement, who would ever judge anyone else? Who would ever label anyone else? Are you sure you're talking about the Hare Krishna movement? It's a good question. I guess the simple answer is we have to be able to, or learn to, establish really good friendship. And you may not want to tell others, every little horrible detail of your life, but there are ways to talk about your problems in a way that does not expose you to unwanted consequences, undesired consequences. Or, so the ability to form good friendship, first of all, it requires that you have some judgment, because some people, to be honest, are not the right people to make your intimate friends, because they may not keep your confidence, or they may not reciprocate. They may not be good friends to you. So if we are too needy, that's the problem of being too needy, that we may get into intimate relationships, either of the sexual kind, or even romantic kind, or even just friendship, even just intimate friendship. If we are too needy, there's the danger of forming inappropriate intimate connections with other people of whatever kind. And so one has to be strong enough. We should not expose ourselves. We should not expose ourselves or reveal ourselves to people who have not earned that confidence. It's just one of the things about the modern insane world that most just leaves me incredulous, like I can't believe it, is that people, let's say, go on television and they just tell all the problems of their life, or on social media like Facebook. When I heard that people just post their problems on Facebook or other media, I was like, the sound you would have heard if you were near me would be my jaw hitting the ground. I still find it kind of unbelievable. I grew up in a very different culture. People had some dignity. They had some, most people, I don't think I ever knew anyone when I was growing up, or that would just, or even to this day, if I see like old friends from school or whatever, or my brothers, it's just, people just didn't do that. So one thing is being intelligent enough and self-controlled enough not to expose yourself, not to speak about very intimate things to people who have not earned your trust. And let's say you find yourself in a situation where you just, for whatever reason, don't have anyone to talk to, maybe because the electricity went down, all your social media is not working, your smartphone battery is dead or something, and so you actually can't communicate with anyone. The best way to reveal your mind, which actually does not depend on any type of material technology, is called japa, because Krishna is present in his name. Krishna is there in his name. And it's funny because, one of the first spiritual practices that some people give up or fail at, japa, it's like, many devotees, well, I'm not chanting 16 rounds, but I am eating prasadam. Somehow or other, I'm very faithful, and so I still go to feasts. So people continue to eat prasadam. They may like kirtan, or they like a good kirtan, but japa is one of the first things that some devotees sort of stop doing, or they reduce. And that's ironic and unfortunate, because japa is precisely your quality private time with God. You can always reveal your mind to Krishna. Actually, you don't even have to, because he already knows. So it's like Santa Claus. He knows when you've been naughty. He knows when you've been nice. So there is someone who actually already knows, like whatever you want to reveal, somebody already knows it. And that's Krishna. And that one person that already knows it is the only person in the universe that actually understands you perfectly, that has the power to change your life. We can always help each other, but in terms of someone really having the power to change your life, that's Krishna. Someone has the power to bring you any kind of support or help you need, any resources you need. That's Krishna. And so to either not chant japa or to chant it inattentively is a disaster, because Krishna is in charge of everything. He's the one person who understands you perfectly. He's the one person who has the power to fix anything in your life immediately. And he's always there. And he actually likes you. I mean, that's amazing. Despite everything, Krishna actually likes us. So therefore, japa is our intimate quality time with Krishna. Japa is the best time in your life to fix your personal problems, whether they are emotional or whatever. Almost all of our problems are ultimately problems psychological, because if you understand you're an eternal, invulnerable, blissful soul, even though there are inevitable bodily problems in this world, if we really, really fully understood ourselves, we wouldn't really have serious problems. Not that we would be completely indifferent to the world or anything, or to our own state, but so japa, no one can say, I can't reveal my mind to anyone, because what about Krishna? Isn't Krishna someone? So I think we really need to understand the importance of japa. So Krishna Priya, one of my first disciples, we heard how Bhishma realized as the time was coming for him to leave, so he fixed his mind only on Krishna. And so in our own lives, we feel as we get older, we are distracted in so many ways. How can we really focus our mind and not be distracted by the temporary things in this world? Well, Prabhupada always said, how did he put it? Arrange your life. Arrange your life so that you can always think of Krishna. So it's our responsibility to organize our lives in such a way that we can think of Krishna. One thing we can do is, for example, live in a place where we have good association, or even in that place, avoid bad association, and so on and so forth. Or we can take our japa seriously. So we have the responsibility to arrange our life, organize our life in such a way that we can always think of Krishna. Prabhupada has given us all the tools we need, all the resources we need, Prabhupada has given us. Now it's just a question of, it's just like, I remember there's this mouthwash called Listerine in America. I don't know if they sell it in other places, Listerine. And so they did a marketing study, and what they found was, because their sales were going down, they found that everyone bought Listerine because it's like one of those old products, like everyone, but they'd put it in what they call the medicine cabinet. They'd put it in their bathroom, and they'd never use it, but everyone had it, but no one used it. So I remember they had this huge ad campaign on primetime television where the conclusion of all the ads was, it's in your medicine cabinet, use it. And so I'm thinking, japa is like that, it's in your closet, use it. Take your japa out of the closet. And not only chant japa, but chant good japa. When you chant japa, you should be thinking, because it's true, that your life depends on it. Your life depends on the quality of your japa. It's just like, what if, for example, let's say, God forbid, someone was being held captive by these violent terrorists, and they said, well, we will let you go only if you, for 10 minutes, you chant good japa. I mean, that's very unlikely, since I can't imagine terrorists doing it. Maybe they would say, chant Allah or something, Allah Akbar. But the point is, our life depends on our japa. Our life depends on the quality of our japa. Are we going to leave this world in panic, in absolute terror, in traumatic fear or confusion? Or are we going to leave this world like ladies and gentlemen? Like, bye-bye, material world. It was, we had our moments. And then you very happily leave. It's described, this very inspiring story of, oh my God, what's the name of that sage who gave up his body to Indra? Dadichi Muni. I mean, talk about being a generous donor. Like, they have all these Sankirtan stories. Yeah, I met this guy, or I met this lady, and then she just gave me, $200, and so I gave her a set of books. The demigod, the devas, went to Dadichi and they asked him, "Could you donate your body?" Sankirtan devotees say, "Could you give a little more? Could you give $10? Could you give 20?" So the devas said to Dadichi, "Hi, could you donate your body?" Because they needed the Dadichi Muni's body. Indra needed it to make a thunderbolt to kill Vritra. And so Dadichi said, sure, I'll donate that. But what's interesting is, if you read that section of the Bhagavatam, Dadichi, because he was a great yogi, he gave up his body, but he actually didn't lose consciousness. He hardly even noticed it. It's like, let's say there's a friend of yours in your house, and they ask you, "Do you mind if I take an apple? I'm a little hungry." And you say, "Sure, you can take an apple." And so you don't even pay attention. I mean, the friend takes it, leaves, and then you notice, oh yeah, I have one less apple in the kitchen. So Dadichi Muni, he just gave up his body. He did not lose consciousness. So if you want to leave this world with your eyes open, your spiritual eyes, and fully conscious, if you want to not have a death experience, if you want to not die, you don't die. You just take off some clothes, but you actually do not experience death, then you need to be very, very serious about chanting Krishna's names. Because in this age, there is no other way. Kalo nastyeva, nastyeva, nastyeva gatiranyata. So we have the option. Every one of us, doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter your gender or your age, or what your position is in the Hare Krishna movement, all that is irrelevant. All that matters is if you, the soul, decide seriously that I'm going to be Krishna conscious, Krishna's in his name, Hare Nama, there's no other way in this age, and you chant Krishna's holy names with all your heart. Not only when you're rocking out in a good kirtan with the drums and the music, and you're into the music. I mean, that's nice, and it's all good. It's all great. But the japa, kirtan is wonderful, and of course, that's what we do in this age. We chant kirtan. But when you do japa, it's like eating food with no salt or spices. There's no music, there are no drums, there's no someone with a beautiful voice singing. You're just stuck with Krishna. I mean, it's just the holy name. It's just Harinama. There's nothing else there, no spices. And so, can you find pleasure in your relationship with Krishna? Can you find beauty in Krishna through his name, even when it's just the name and nothing else? And so that's why I always say, I think japa is really, it's the best measure of our spiritual advancement. And it's the most powerful process, which is why Prabhupada, in the initiation vow, he said, you have to promise not to do four things, the four things that you cannot do. And there's only one thing that Prabhupada asked you to do to be initiated, and that is japa. So I think we need a japa revolution in ISKCON. Sanskrit at times appears to be humorous and tricky. It's often very humorous, and it's often very tricky. Oh, thanks for clearing many doubts. My pleasure. The next from, whoops. Uh-oh. I scrolled the wrong way or something. Now it jumped down. I gotta find. The next one was Leela Kar. I'll find it. I think. Okay. Leelakar. Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisance. All glories to Prabhupada. We thank you. Okay, where's the question? There's tremendous emphasis on concentration on Krishna at the time of death, especially by Bhishma Deva. Could taking another birth at the same time, having the opportunity to perform Sankirtan, be similar to going back home since no one can? Yes, we can pray to Krishna that, I'd like to do more Sankirtan. If we focus our mind on Krishna and leave this world, Krishna will put us in the best place. And if our desire is to do Sankirtan, then Krishna will certainly take that in consideration. But we should not kind of, at the time of death, not think of Krishna, so I can take another birth here, so I can do more Sankirtan. That's not a good idea. We should just depend on Krishna and fix our mind in him. Okay, his question, I'll have to translate it from the Spanish, from Danjil Tapor. Often, many times, you mention that Srila Prabhupada translates the Sanskrit in his way. Does that mean we can translate in various ways? That this will not lead to personal speculation. Thank you. First of all, Prabhupada, of course, never speculates. So, but could that lead us to do this? My approach to Sanskrit is, well, first is that we have to start with the literal meaning of the word. And that's what Prabhupada does. Prabhupada doesn't always give the whole trail. He doesn't always give the whole sequence. Okay, literally means this, but in this context, that comes to mean that. And so, but that's what's going on. So the literal meaning of the word is always in play. It's always, it doesn't go away. It's not that words lose their literal meanings. But in context, the literal meaning can indicate something else. So basically what Prabhupada is trying to do is he's trying to simplify things. He's trying to make it easy for everyone. And so therefore, when he sees that the literal translation may be a little too intellectual or esoteric, not obvious on the surface to many people, he'll say, okay, it means this, but this is the point. This is what the verse is really trying to tell you. And so Prabhupada will, as Prabhupada himself said, sometimes he'll put the purport in the translation, because his only consideration was he wanted people to understand this, to understand Krishna, and to be saved. So because Prabhupada has done that, we now all know the great philosophy of Krishna consciousness by the mercy of Prabhupada. And so therefore, because of what Prabhupada did, I now have the freedom to go more into the literal words, meanings, because I find them fascinating, and for me, it's a nice way to fix my mind on Krishna and to fix my mind in the Bhagavatam. How to approach suffering individuals? Try to give them Krishna consciousness in whatever way they're able to accept it. So, Stavira Bhakti, how can we all help you in helping Krishna West advance in our areas of the world? Hari Bol from Minnesota. Minnesota in January. Let me take a guess. It's warm, probably around 70 degrees, or maybe not. So, we need leaders. We need people who have the courage and the ability to go out and just do something, create programs. And if someone is not able to create a program, that's okay, no problem. Find someone who can. So, we do need to, I think Krishna West, personally, it's my view based on my studies of history, including Vaishnava history and my studies of Prabhupada's teachings, that something like Krishna West is desperately needed. And so we're all very grateful if you'd like to help and just create a program yourself, get in touch with us, or find someone that has that ability and then help that person. So, Krishna Vijay Das, translating from Spanish, Krishna creates everything. Also, he created all the suffering and horrible things of this material universe. Fortunately, that's a question, not a declaration. No, it's, for example, right now, I am in a room that's in a building. It's a suite in Pismo Beach, and we're up on a cliff over the ocean. And it's very nice. Now, if, let's say, some crazy person jumps off the cliff, you can't blame God because he created a cliff. I mean, the cliff is actually, it's very beautiful. It's very beautiful. And you can see the ocean. It's, it's very, very beautiful geology and topography in this part of the world. And so how can we blame God if someone jumps off the cliff or someone is careless and falls off the cliff because of their own carelessness? Krishna creates a world and there's a user's manual. There's a user's manual for the universe. It's called Bhagavad Gita. Krishna teaches you in the Bhagavad Gita how you can always be happy. Now, if we ignore Krishna, then and we do crazy things, then you can't blame Krishna for that. You can say, well, some people don't know about Bhagavad Gita. Yes, first of all, that was their choice. But secondly, really in every culture in the world, I've never studied or heard about a society anywhere in the world at any time that didn't have some wisdom. I mean, some societies were really crazy, but someone in that society had wisdom. And so Krishna says in the Gita that the mode of goodness leads to wisdom and happiness. So even if someone's not a devotee, Krishna has created a program where you can still be happy and progressive in this world, even without Krishna, according to Bhagavad Gita, if you live in the mode of goodness. Krishna says many times in the Gita that from goodness, material goodness, comes happiness, wisdom. Ultimately, it's not the highest destination, but and that basic wisdom, Krishna doesn't say wisdom comes from India. He says just wisdom comes from the mode of goodness. And if we study history, we find that throughout the world, at all times, some people were in the mode of goodness. And those people had wisdom because wisdom comes from goodness. And so if someone is really suffering, doing crazy things, it's not just because, well, I wasn't born in India. Even in India, there's a lot of crazy people like everywhere else. So yes, we are responsible and we can be happy if we choose to be happy. Can you talk about, this is from Everything Revolution. That's nice. Can you talk about, can you talk about the new project in Gainesville? Also, how is pure preaching connected to the concept of great knowledge? Well, in Gainesville, Krishna engaged me to get this beautiful house, which is now the world headquarters of the Bhaktivedanta Institute. And now the Institute for Vaishnava Studies, which is a similar organization working with the BI, they're also going to have an office there. And so it's really becoming one of the intellectual centers in the world of ISKCON. Of course, we also have the Oxford program. And as far as how is pure preaching connected to the concept of great knowledge? Well, because we preach great knowledge. And the knowledge is great because it's complete. And therefore, we can find something in our really unlimited knowledge, this ocean of knowledge, we can find something for everyone. And we can find, except for people who are really envious of Krishna, but any normal person, any just ordinary person, we can find something within our repertoire, we can find something within this vast knowledge to attract and please that person, to help that person. So we have that power because Prabhupada gave us this knowledge. Hari Booty, translating Spanish. In past ages, there existed many abilities like siddhis and mystic powers. Bhishma is showing us one that is that belongs to the great personalities, to abandon the body at will. In a little less than 5,000 years, we have lost innumerable abilities that people had up until the end of the past age. What is the reason for the deterioration, such a significant deterioration in this sense? Well, because it's Kali Yuga. I mean, really, the question is, why is there a Kali Yuga at all? Why not just leave things in Dwapara or in Treta or even in Satya? Because Krishna reciprocates with souls, and many souls have weird desires. And so Krishna creates an age where there's a lot of opportunity to be weird. So Krishna is not inducing people. It's not like Krishna saying, hey, he's saying to his friends, hey, wouldn't it be fun to see a bunch of really degraded people doing really stupid things? I mean, wouldn't that be funny? Yeah. And so Krishna's friends say, yeah, let's see some really stupid people. Okay, I'm going to cover all these people. It's Kali Yuga and make them really stupid. They're going to do really ridiculous things. And, and Krishna's friends are sitting there with some, Vaikuntha popcorn and lemonade or something watching it. So that's not the point. Obviously, that's not what happens. We have desires, but even in this age in which Krishna is honoring people's freedom, because there's a Kali Yuga, because a lot of people want something like Kali Yuga. They don't want to drink nectar, they want beer. And they don't want to hear about Krishna. They want to, watch a soccer game or a football game or something. They'd rather, well, if you're Krishna conscious, you can also watch an occasional soccer game. I mean, it's just recreation. I'm talking about people that never are Krishna conscious. So, Krishna says a little recreation is not a bad thing as long as it doesn't get out of control. So, Krishna has created this age because if he didn't, he would not be allowing people to exercise their free will. But even in this age, we have great facility. We have just as much facility as Bhishma. We may not be as great as Bhishma, but in that age, sure, Bhishma had that. First of all, not everyone had that power, but they had more powers back then, but everything was much more expensive. You had to do a lot more to be liberated back then. So what we need to look at is not they had more power. That's not the point. The point is, what is the ratio? La proporción. What is the ratio between what power do you have and how much does it cost to go back to Godhead? Or like, how much do you have? How many? So in this age, we have less power, but also it's much easier to go back to Godhead. So the relationship, the ratio between qualifications and powers are the same in every yuga. So it's technically never more difficult to go back to Godhead, and it's never easier because it's always the same proportion between qualifications required and powers that are given to us. So no problem. So Eduardo Guerrero, debes poner en, Spanish. Someone just said put a lot of question marks so I can see the questions. Yes, thank you. That was not a question itself. Oops. Nilananda. How do we think of Krishna and experience a higher taste in our everyday duties, exams, traffic, the mundane duties of work, social life, etc. Well, first of all, realize they are not mundane duties. Because let's say you have to study, and I know that you're actually studying for Krishna, or taking care of a child. That's also for Krishna. Going to school, all that work. And so what we really need to do is not change our activities, because then we would become homeless. Although I would visit you in the park if you're living in a big plastic bag. I mean, sleeping in I promise I'll visit you, but please don't do that. So the secret is that we have to understand how everything we're doing is for Krishna. And let's say you're taking care of a family, or you're working, or you're studying. We should, again, it comes back to japa. If we chant really good japa, then when we're doing all those so-called mundane things, we will be enthusiastically doing them for Krishna. For example, when I went to Harvard and I was studying, I was very happy, because I was thinking, I'm going to use all this knowledge to make the world a better place. I'm going to use this knowledge to carry out my highest duties in life. And therefore, as I was listening to the professors or reading, even if they were saying things that I might disagree with or whatever, I just thought, I'm being empowered. Because knowledge is power. And even if I'm studying something or learning something that I may see in a different way, but understanding how other people see things is very empowering. It's very empowering, because it empowers us to present our own convictions in a relevant, intelligent way. And so I never felt, when I was at the university, I never felt that I was just wasting time, or this is not relevant. I always felt that everything was empowering. So again, if we chant good japa and really pray to Krishna, we will see everything we're doing as service to Krishna, and we'll offer it to Krishna with devotion. Okay, here's only one question mark from Benjamin Arati, or however you pronounce it, but I caught it. What about preaching the glories of the holy names to the faithless? Well, first of all, we don't do that. We say, open your mouth, and we throw in a sweet ball. What about preaching the glories of the holy names of the faithless? How to deal with this? We don't. Well, faithless. Well, actually, let me be fair here. If by faithless you mean someone that doesn't now believe in Krishna, some people that don't now believe in Krishna are not against Krishna. They're not against the idea. They just have not heard a reasonable explanation. I would say almost all the atheists I ever met, what they really meant was, I didn't like the religion my parents taught me. And so if someone is really an atheist, then we avoid them. And so therefore there's no problem, because we don't try to preach to hardcore atheists. And if people are just soft atheists or agnostics, we find a way to communicate with them. So it's not really a problem. Let's see. Radha Govinda Jivana Das. What are the results of perfectly practicing the different Yuga dharmas for the other ages? How does that compare to perfectly chanting Hare Krishna now? Well, it's every Yuga is you can go back to the spiritual world if you just do the right process. Of course, as we learn the Bhagavatam in past ages, people tend to go to Vishnu Loka. And the amazing thing about this age is that the most intimate form of the Lord, Krishna, the original form of God, has personally come. So, sometimes I don't know, I'm trying to scroll down, and sometimes it jumps. Obviously, it's not my fault, because I'm an ISKCON guru. I mean, that's obvious. Okay, I always worship that I always wonder. This is from, it's written in Devanagari, but unfortunately the script is so small, it's hard to read it. It's hard for me to read it. You would probably, wait, I've never set up class. I can actually read that Devanagari. Because because I see you every week, but, Ashish Juyal. Ashish Juyal. So, it's a symptom of youth that you have to wear all these different glasses, right? To read things. It's a symptom of a very youthful person. So, I always wonder that we do worship Lord Krishna, but we don't worship Krishna's children when children are part of God, like we do worship Mahadev. Also, we worship children of Mahadev as well. That's actually described in the Bhagavatam. It's explained in the Bhagavatam regarding, in relation to the pastime where the Yadu dynasty removed, the people in the Yadu dynasty removed each other from this world. And I think it was Bhaktisiddhanta explains this, that Krishna did not want to encourage or even allow in this world a type of, you could say, biological parampara. If you know, the Muslim world divided over this point. The Shiite Muslims believe that ultimate authority within Islam comes down genetically from in the Prophet's family, the Prophet Muhammad, and then Ali, and then so there's actually a biological parampara. And this is very dangerous. I mean, because on those grounds, Prabhupada's children would have been the next acharyas of ISKCON, and as you know, if you read the biographies, that would have been problematic. So, and even Advaita Acharya, it's described in the CC. They had 6 sons, 3 of them deviated and 3 of them were faithful. So Krishna wanted to not only discourage, but just eliminate any idea on the earth or any possibility on the earth of a hereditary parampara. Krishna wanted the parampara to be based on qualification, not on your body, which is why everyone in ISKCON is in favor of women being gurus, right? Because no one in ISKCON would be in that bodily concept and think that you need a certain bodily qualification to be guru, right? I mean, that couldn't happen in a spiritual movement, could it? So that's the reason. That's the reason. And even in the Shaiva Sampradayas, it's not all hereditary. I mean, they may worship. I mean, we do, because in our tradition, Vaishnava tradition, the real point is parampara and keeping this knowledge alive. And so but that's the point, to remove the danger of a so-called hereditary parampara. Krishna did that. As far as his sons, some of them are honored. Like, for example, Pradyumna. Pradyumna is definitely honored. Definitely honored. And but that's the main point. I just got an invitation to Peru. Thank you very much, from Danjel Tapor. Let's see. Oh, someone's asking for a Spanish translation of the class. We can try to arrange that. Oh, this one, no question marks, but it seems like a question. This is from Krishna Das Mala Ari Krishna. How should one respond to Abrahamic traditions' claims that they don't accept the Gita reincarnation? Abrahamic religions are, of course, Judaism, Christianity, Islam. Within all those traditions, there were people that believed in reincarnation, but they were often, not I think in Judaism, but they were rejected as heretics or whatever. It's pretty common sense. How do we deal with them? First of all, most people, even in the Western countries, don't accept sort of the old theologies and these religions as absolute truth. And there's extraordinary interest in reincarnation among people who were born into Abrahamic tradition. So in terms of an argument, basically, if one does not believe in reincarnation, then one's theology will necessarily be irrational. And that's the point I'll explain. If a person does not accept reincarnation, their theology, their philosophy will necessarily, unavoidably be irrational. For the simple reason that the strongest argument, or the most, well, it's actually not that strong against us, but the most common and argument against God, against the existence of a God, and the one that's most that's been most effective, is called the argument from evil. Because generally people who claim there is a God claim that God is a triple O God. God is omnipotent, or all-powerful, omniscient, all-knowing, and omnibenevolent, all good. So basically all these religions claim that God is, knows everything, has all power, and is all good. If that's possible, then philosophically, it is simply not possible to give a good explanation of why there's so much suffering in the world, so much injustice, so much evil in the world. Because the argument is, if God is all-knowing, he knows that this world is a mess and there's so much injustice in this world. If God is all good, God wants to stop people from suffering, especially suffering from injustice. In other words, suffering when they don't deserve to suffer. And if God is all-powerful, he can stop it, because you could know that people are suffering, you could love people, but I just can't help you. Like, let's say I love someone and that person has some kind of painful condition, and I would do anything to stop their pain, but I can't. So if someone knows everything, wants to help, doesn't want people to suffer, and is all-powerful, they do stop the suffering. But since the suffering doesn't stop, there is no God that has these three qualifications: all good, all-knowing, all-powerful. And that argument basically, I think, eliminates non-reincarnation theologies from serious contention. Now, there was one famous philosopher, Alan Plantinga, who was a Christian philosopher. He's retired now, but a Christian philosopher and a very good philosopher who fought against atheistic philosophy. So he came up with an argument to defend Christianity from what I just said. And I'm going to show you how the argument, it amazes me that a lot of atheists said, well, actually, it's a good argument, or it's a serious argument, which kind of amazes me. But this was his answer. He said that if God or anyone else allows one evil to prevent a greater evil, then you can't criticize. For example, let's say you're a parent, your mother or father, and you have to take your child, you love your child, but you take your child to get medical treatment. The medical treatment's a little painful, despite, every possible technique to avoid the pain. There's going to be some pain for the child. Now, so you could say giving pain to your child is evil, but if you're doing it to save the child from some serious disease, then it's not evil. You're acting out of love. So, or let's say you punish the child and, you tell the child, you have to go to your room or something, but it's to prevent the child basically from becoming a sociopath, of course, and maybe ultimately president of the United States. But so in other words, you have to punish a child sometimes so you don't ruin the child. So if you cause some pain or suffering to someone you love to prevent a greater evil, then it's not a problem. And so Plantinga argued that if God took away our free will, that would be a greater evil because we wouldn't be persons. Without free will, I mean, it's horrible. We wouldn't even really exist as persons. And therefore, God allows some people to exercise their free will and to do bad things to other people. Now, from the point of view of atheists, they said, well, that's interesting. But there's an obvious objection to that. If God is all powerful, God and creates a world in which there's reincarnation, then yes, God does not, how should I put it? God allows people to exercise their free will by sometimes doing bad things, but they're only allowed to do bad things to people who had earned the karma of having something bad happen to them. And even in the case of something, say God, giving people the result of their karma, you could say, well, why doesn't God just teach us without our suffering? Let's say, for example, I eat meat. Well, let's say someone eats meat and that's bad. Why doesn't God just reveal to them how bad it is? And then without having to suffer in the next life, they'll do the right thing. The problem with that argument is that it's absurd because we know that people do not take good lessons. For example, there's all these movies, there's so many movies showing the unspeakable evil of slaughterhouses and just of animal killing. I mean, there's so many movies and you can just see it's unspeakably evil. But some people are sociopaths. I was just seeing something on YouTube where some guy was talking about he does that certain things cause suffering unnecessarily to other people. He said, I don't care. I don't care if they're suffering. It means nothing to me. It's one of these like white race or radical groups. He actually kept saying, you think that I care, but I don't. I really don't care that they're suffering. And so there are people like that. So God, let's say you get your karma, or not you, because if you're a devotee, but let's say someone gets their karma and they're suffering, but even then it is the minimum, it is the least suffering possible to bring about a necessary good. That if Krishna gave someone by karma less suffering, ultimately that would lead to more suffering because the person would not learn their lesson. They would do even worse things and suffer more. So if you say, it's just like, let's say you go to the dentist. Everyone loves to go to the dentist, right? So you go to the dentist and there's some necessary procedure. You expect the dentist will perform that procedure in the least painful way. And that's what Krishna does. If Krishna gave people any less pain than he does, or if the system he created gave them less pain, they would not be corrected, they would not understand, and they would do things that would bring them even greater suffering, and so on. And so therefore, in the Abrahamic religions, if you say there's no reincarnation, then unavoidably you are stuck with an irrational theology in which you cannot explain the world as it actually exists. And so reincarnation is absolutely necessary if you want to make sense of this world, if you want to have a rational theology. And that's one point I make. From the same person. How do you rebuke the claim one way to God? Well, first of all, I think things which are incredibly stupid are obviously untrue. And so if you say there's only one way to God, let's say through Christianity or something, I mean, how could that possibly be true? If you say that, then you are destroying any possibility of a spiritual science, because then you are insisting that people who are more spiritually qualified, who love God more, who have better behavior, who are kinder to other people, don't go to God just because they didn't join your church. And people who are less qualified love God less, don't treat people as well, are less compassionate, less loving in every way. They follow the teachings of Jesus much less than people in another religion. If you say, but they're saved and no one else is, that's simply, sorry, I have to use the S word, it's stupid. Plus, it gets into the whole problem of the historical Jesus. If you actually study these things seriously, Jesus taught many times that you go to heaven because you treat other people properly. You love your neighbor as yourself. So if people in a different religion from yours are following Jesus much more strictly, and you're not following, but you go to heaven just because you claim you accepted Jesus, that's grossly irrational, and again destroys any possibility of a spiritual science. So fanaticism is the enemy of spiritual science, and there is a spiritual science. And God, anyways, there are a million things you could say about this. So Octavian Patrasco, some look on the soul as amazing, some hear of him as amazing, etc. And some even hearing about him can understand him. How do I know I've understood it, the soul, and does understanding the soul come first before understanding Krishna? It's simultaneous if you're in Krishna consciousness, and it's self-evident. That's what Lord Chaitanya said, Sata Pramanya. That gets into epistemology very briefly. It's getting late here. My God. Lord Chaitanya said that, and Aristotle said, and modern epistemology often says, that ultimately you can be pushed into an infinite regress of proofs. Like, how do you know this? Because of this. Well, how do you know that? But how do you know that? And so some things are self-evident. They prove themselves. Right now, the sun is shining in the sky. If someone looks up and says, I don't see the sun, then either that person is visually impaired or crazy or lying, because the sun is in the sky. And so there are many things that are just self-evidently true. We know they're true because we know it. And one of those things we know is Krishna. And so if there are traditions that try to understand the soul but don't believe in God, like the Jain, the Jain movement, they believe in the soul and not God. But in Krishna consciousness, we understand everything simultaneously. Oh my God. I can't believe, here it is. Shaki Jacques. Many stories from Padma Puranas describe people liberated in Vaikuntha after coming in contact with a verse of Bhagavad Gita, often appearing undeserved, except for Agyata Sukriti. Yes, there are those verses, and ultimately those verses in the Puranas cannot contradict or eliminate Krishna's own teachings. Bhagavad Gita is spoken by God himself, Krishna himself, and Krishna says, I reciprocate with everyone. I give everyone what they deserve. And so if someone comes in contact accidentally with some aspect of Krishna and is liberated, that means that person actually in their previous life had almost earned their liberation. They somehow became fallen, a little more was missing, and then that happened. So yes, these verses cannot contradict, cannot refute, cannot eliminate what God himself has said in the Bhagavad Gita. So Isho Dhyana, please comment on Bhaktivinoda Thakur's book, Sri Krishna Samhita. Oh, greetings from Croatia. Hare Krishna, Croatia. Thanks for all the grammar. Glad you like it. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that, well, actually, that's a different topic, but one thing he says is that the descriptions of hell are not always to be taken literally. The descriptions about the spiritual benefits described for following an Ekadasi seem to far extend beyond what the austere. Yes, all those verses but you're meant to encourage people. Ultimately, you get what you deserve. For example, in the Bhagavatam, there are verses that say anyone who reads this story or hears this story of King so-and-so will never lose in battle. But we know in history there were many kings who both read those stories and one of them lost the battle. So the way Prabhupada explains this is it's true for some people, not necessarily everyone. If you look at the grammar in the Sanskrit, obviously often it says this may happen. So from Ananda Leela, is it possible that Krishna chose to remove his lineage from this planet by creating that war where they all killed each other because he wanted to show that even his own family were not guaranteed to be pure? That's interesting. That's not really what the acharyas say, but which makes me wonder, we're all members of his family, liberated souls. I always wondered why he chose to take away his dynasty in such a demeaning way instead of just sending them back home. It wasn't demeaning. It was actually, the point was that they were so powerful, no one else could kill them. And so therefore they could only kill themselves. And so they died as they lived, as warriors. So I'm not sure that's necessary. Of course, they were intoxicated. That you could say is demeaning, but it was just Krishna's arrangement. Krishna arranged it. And so if you're just doing what Krishna engages you to do, it's not demeaning. Just like Lord Shiva was not demeaned when he was attracted to Mohini Morti. And as far as them not being pure, unless that's stated in the Shastra, I would not assume that to be true. If God, Christian children are qualified. So anyway, I don't really understand that question. How do asuras who took birth as kings in Mahabharata remember their past lives in order to? Well, they're come from higher planets. They're not human beings. They're higher beings, and they have powers that we don't have. From Somya Moharana. How to deal with people who mistranslate Hindu texts and do their own wrong interpretation, then blame Hinduism. We have to teach. We have to spread Krishna consciousness. That's why I started Krishna West, because I think it's very important that we spread this movement. That's all we can do. The light drives away the darkness. You've gone, Krishna. Anyway, so Ashish, maybe you could send me privately the question, try to rephrase it because I couldn't really understand it. Okay, thank you all very much. We kind of went for a while here, but appreciate your coming to the class. Hope you're all very well, and hope you'll be back next Sunday. Hope we'll all be back. Hare Krishna.